Welcome back to the Creatively Curious podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walter. In this week's episode, where I'm going to be reviewing week 9 of the Creative Visionary program, which is on process. So that's the theme of week 9. And in this week, we start working on a series of paintings. So taking all of the information that we've learned so far and putting that into, they recommend 3 paintings. And throughout the program, we've been working on these 12 by 12 wood panels. And so actually, I'm using my time to kind of work on some pieces that I'll hopefully have for an art walk that I'm doing in July here in Edmonton, Canada, where I live. But I'll just go over the takeaways for this week. So the takeaways are: you already have everything you need to make your art. Your path is what you are creating. Your art is merely an artifact. Your life will get better, and so will your art when you are excited and fired up. So I think the whole theme ultimately of Art to Life and the Creative Visionary program is to do that, like to do things that excite you, to do things that interest you and where you do feel fired up. And as a result, when you come from that feeling space, then your art naturally will be better. And obviously, there's certain techniques and knowledge that we've gathered from this program and from our experiences creating art. But ultimately, like, I know for sure for me, when I'm too much in my head, which often happens every time I sit down to do art or anything, then my art isn't very good because I'm like thinking too much about it. But then when I just kind of get in the flow, get into a space where I'm feeling playful and free, then the art is better. So moving on to takeaways. Number 3 is make many pieces rather than one piece. It's easier and faster and results in art more like you. So that was learning for me last year, was to have multiples. And so that's what they recommend actually, is those 3 boards for the series, and then like a throwaway panel, it's called, where you just basically use up old paint and you don't even think about that one that much. And which is interesting because sometimes the art on that panel, that is the throwaway panel, is a little bit better than the other art, because the other art you're thinking about too much and the throwaway you're not thinking about. So that's pretty interesting. He says this pretty frequently, although he's decided maybe it's not the best kind of analogy. Is he says you're just dating, not marrying. So don't fall in love with these boards too fast. Just play and don't try to get to an outcome. So we did that early on in the program, was where we just played. And I think for sure that's something that everyone could benefit from, is just to play, which I find again easier in my sketchbook because there is no agenda, there is no outcome. No one needs to see it. It's just me and my sketchbook, and I feel freer in there to experiment. And so I'm trying to get to that place on panels or on pieces that I ultimately like to take to a art walk. Um, and that's kind of where that dating, not marrying comes from, is you're just, checking things out, not getting too serious, and that there is like benefit in that, because when you're just playing and experimenting and enjoying yourself, then you feel freer, then the art feels freer, and it's not so, I guess, tied up in the outcome and having an agenda. So you want the other takeaway is you want your art to feel like what brings you alive. What's the feeling you want to bring forward? So he focuses on that quite a bit is like, how do you want to feel? How do you want the art to feel? Which I think, in maybe in different crowds, I think in a crowd of artists and coaches, maybe we'd be a bit more free to talk about our feelings, but I don't think that is a topic that we kind of get into a lot. Maybe that's just my some of my circles. We don't really talk about how we're feeling as much. So that's one thing I really try to eh, support, I guess, with my kids and everyone around me and myself is that feeling piece because I do believe that we are here to feel. We have so many feelings, so many things going on in this world that I think that we are here to feel it all, to feel everything. And so if we get to choose how we want to feel and then put that in the art so that the people who are enjoying the art will feel that way as well, then that's a really like amazing skill to have for the art. So hopefully that made sense, but the focus would be on the feeling and not necessarily on the specifics of the art or the techniques or any of that. It's like, how do you want this piece to feel? How do you want to feel? How are you feeling doing it? And he talked, like this week, he talked a lot about our soul, which I think he tied to intuition. So trust was the theme. And he said, your soul has got you. It's your guide. Your intuition is your superpower, and it's rarely wrong. And people, again, I'm not sure about your circle, but we don't really talk about that a lot. And that's the life coaching work that I do and the work that I've been doing personally is really basically focusing on that. I mean, we live in this world where it's like left brain, left brain, left brain, hashtag science, la la la. But there's so much more that's available to us that we don't learn about, we don't focus on. And so it's nice to hear in this space like a focus on that actually you want to tap into that intuition and like what feels good when you're doing your art and which direction to go to. You're not using that left brain, at least I don't. You're using the right brain, the more creative brain, but tapping into that intuition, I guess, of like what colors feel better, what textures, which direction you want to go in. So, and I do rely on that quite a bit for myself. And he says, art is beautiful change, and we get to change, we get to improve, we get to learn. And I think that's really beautiful. And there is a lot of change that, oh, I was just saying, like, my son just graduated from his play school and he's been there for, I guess he started a little bit late last year. But so he's been there for a year and a half. And it's just hard, that's another change. So then he's off to kindergarten, off to elementary school. And I was thinking, oh, I have a hard time with that. Sometimes it just makes me sad, like because we get used to how things are and it's comfortable and familiar. But our soul is is constantly craving change and differences and new experiences. And so it's that balance of basically just letting go, like letting go of all these stages of ourselves, stages of the people around us, stages of our art. And I guess to have compassion and love for all those stages of us and around us. And to know that we will be constantly evolving and to just be curious and playful about what is to come. And that's really helped me with my art because, I mean, even I sat down, I haven't, unfortunately, I haven't been practicing as regularly with my painting as I sometimes do. And I notice that when I haven't been doing it regularly, and that's one of the things they talk about is to do it um little but often. So you don't need a ton of time, but you need to be doing it regularly. And so when I'm not doing art, and specifically, I guess, painting regularly, then when I go to sit down to work on stuff, I notice I feel really uncomfortable and almost like this panic. And so that happened to me on the weekend where I had two pieces, two blank pieces. They were uh, wood panels, not panels, but like wood frames. Um, well, I guess panels, kind of like a canvas wood board, I guess, kind of like canvas, but just solid wood, gessoed, ready to go. Um, and I was really nervous about starting. And then I had another piece that actually I wanted to paint over it that I had painted last year that I wasn't happy with. And I just felt so uncomfortable initially. Now, note to self, I think what I might do going forward is to do more of like a warm up in my sketchbook or on something else because it did take me a while to feel like I was warmed up and to get into that flow state because I felt like I was really thinking, like really in my head about like, what colors and what material, what brushes and what to use. And it was really took me a while to kind of get going. And then I finally did get into the flow. And then I feel like I'm not thinking as much and I am relying more on that intuition. And I tried some things that I haven't tried before, some different mediums, coarse, I'm going to forget the name of it, of course something, but to add texture, because I'm really into the texture. If you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back to listen to that, which was last week. Um, Episode 21, I believe. And then glass bead, like this glass bead medium, which you can mix with paints or just use on its own. And that was pretty neat. So I kind of embraced that whole playful experimenting part and really try to embrace that as opposed to figuring out, how to make a piece that's going to sell at an art walk. It's really more about, yeah, how do I want to feel and let's check some stuff out. And I haven't used that molding. I think it was like coarse molding paste. I've never used that before. It was super fun. I'm not sure really now where to go or where to take it. Can I put gloss medium over it? I'm assuming I can. But it's fun. It's super fun to do that. And then I'll go back. I always leave pieces like a day or two, and then I'll go back, and then I can kind of get more into my mind about, what do I like? What don't I like? Do I like the colors? Do I like the texture? All of that stuff. So, um, yeah, basically work in multiples, which really takes the pressure off of one, when you're just working on one. And then one thing that does happen is you kind of learn something in one piece, and then I think, oh, I want to do that in this other piece. So it's nice to have a few, and then you work on like putting paint down, like the first layer down on all three pieces or however many multiples you're working on. I think it would be hard to work on like a whole bunch at a time. So I'm usually working on two or three. And so you work on like they call it like the first pass, getting paint down, one layer, and then coming back, adding another layer, and so on. So that It's never just one layer and then you're done. You're always kind of like, not always, but until you're finished, you're adding more and more layers, which also to me is like life too. Is like we have all these experiences and sometimes we think, oh, I didn't want that experience. But if you didn't have that experience, you wouldn't be who you are. It makes you who you are. You have more knowledge. You take that with you moving forward into other things. And so the same kind of applies with painting. You have these layers, and like sometimes I'm like, damn, that looks horrible. Like, what just happened in that session? Like, gross. That's gross. But I've come to realize because I'm doing this now pretty regularly that I'm like, you know what? That could be like an awesome underlayer for something else. And so even a painting that I'm pretty sure is almost finished that I have was a totally different painting, but you can still see some of the under layers, like different kind of colors, brighter colors than what I have on top. And I love that. I love that that's coming through, and that's how life feels to me is like we think, damn, I didn't want that to happen. But then it's like, you know what? No, it did happen. And I wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened. And yeah, so it's like kind of just embracing those, I guess, those layers to the art and then not judging them. And also the nice thing about painting and acrylic painting specifically, I've never painted in oils. You can paint right over it. So if like that part's too dark, make it lighter. If that part's too light, make it darker. If you want more texture, scrape into it, add more paint, add some molding paste. Like there's just so many options. And so I think that trust piece is really neat because it's like you can trust yourself to like correct the painting if you're not happy with it, and to move forward that way, and to know like not every time you sit down to paint is it going to be like amazing and rainbows and cotton candy. It might be just a little bit that you do, and then you can say, oh, I like that, or I didn't like that, and then you change it. You can trust yourself to change it. So that's week 9 process. Hopefully that was clear as mud. And so we're just continuing on the next few weeks. We'll be working on this series. So I'm going to try to get brave and do some posting on social media. And I usually post the links to my socials underneath the show with the show notes. So you can always check that out. And then I'll have this art walk coming up in July, which I'm not going to remember the exact dates, but I think it's July 11th, 12th, 13th, something like that. The Friday, Saturday, Sunday here in Edmonton, Alberta. It's the White Avenue Art Walk. So I'll have some pieces for sale in that art walk. If you're local and you're interested, then you can check that out. And I will see you or hear you, talk to you on the next episode. And take care.